What I do this afternoon is talk about how LinkedIn views communities, how marketers can actually leverage the network beyond just having a profile that you use to find jobs, and really what the utility of LinkedIn is to some of our most advanced users.
What are you doing?
Social networking.
Social networking?
Everybody's doing it. I have 826 friends.
That's a lot of friends.
I can find anyone.
Okay. I need to put together a team of international finance experts who know merger arbitrage, have 10 plus years experience, speak Cantonese, and hit the ground running Monday.
I don't have any friends like that.
So, for those of you who didn't hear all the audio, the essence of there are a lot of rumors that go around social networking. It's the cool thing that everyone needs to do, but a lot of brands feel they need to be there. They're not entirely sure what they're supposed to do once they show up. What I thought I'd start by doing is making a clear distinction between how we view the universe of social media. There are, in our view, two clearly different universes. One being the social networks, and the second being professional networks. Social networks are really about entertainment, socializing, friends, family. The information that's available to companies, individuals, etc. really revolve around a sort of a hodgepodge of information around travel habits, sports, pets, personal interests, things like that. And they definitely have a place in all our lives. Having said that, a professional network is quite distinct. It's really about knowledge and productivity if you know how to use it. It's about clearly demarcated information tidbits around things such as the function and title of an individual, their professional affiliations, their education, their industry. So it's much more than just your basic resume. LinkedIn is the largest professional network in the world. We're not the only one. The point being that professional networks are really trying to take an offline phenomenon online. If you think about how most of us do our work today, we form communities of our peers, of our colleagues, our customers, our suppliers, and then we try and leverage it for professional gain. What LinkedIn attempts to do is to automate a lot of this and hopefully really increase that network size far beyond your own physical capabilities. This case study of an Indian pharmaceutical professional based here in Bangalore actually illustrates a very active user. So one thing, as the country manager for India, the one thing I'm extremely proud of is we have 7 million members actually in India alone. We have over 75 million globally, and a number of the Indian users are the most active LinkedIn users. And active, we define active by not time spent on site, but the way you use the site, how often you come back to the site, and some of the innovative things you're using the site to do. So in this case, we have this pharmaceutical researcher. He does molecule discovery. So for those of you who know the supply chain of pharmaceutical research, this is the highest end of research, predominantly done in Northern Europe. A supply chain that's very carefully protected. It's almost impossible to do business development into the supply chain. Very carefully protected by the pharmaceutical firms. Now this guy, he wanted to expand his business, and he chose LinkedIn. And instead of actually going and approaching people, sending out emails or connection ad requests or other forms of communication, he decided to use it to market himself. He was also clearly a strong marketer, to your point earlier. He understood that a poll is not about market research, it's about marketing. When you're actually, if you think about it, particularly in a LinkedIn poll, it's not so much about gathering the information, it's about making a point. So I'm not sure if everyone can read this, but basically he asks what someone would be willing to pay for a fairly high-end, sophisticated part of this process of molecule discovery. He created this poll on LinkedIn. Anyone can create a poll. Then he spent some small amount of money and targeted it to only pharmaceutical professionals in Northern Europe. Okay? The results are on the right side. He got a bunch of responses. At the bottom you can see a number of them are like almost pretty much mini essay length. he done free, well not free, but very low cost business development. Right? He got the contacts. The beauty of LinkedIn and actually of any major professional network is that everything is based on trust and reputation. Because it's behind the walled garden, it's behind the username and password access. At this point, we don't believe people should be hiding behind a name like crazyboy123 or something like that. If I put a comment on LinkedIn, it's from Krishnan, country manager of LinkedIn. So what tends to happen on LinkedIn is that you don't have a lot of frivolous responses, you don't tend to have a lot of abuse, because you're staking your professional reputation on it. Also, another thing, that a positive reaction is that people who actually know the material like to use it as a platform for thought leadership. So if you're a marketer, it allows you to go in there and assume a thought leadership position in a community. So in this case, he found a number of pharmaceutical professionals more than willing to not only say what they're willing to pay, but why there's a problem in what he was discussing. So he had got into a conversation without sort of feeling invasive, without feeling like their privacy was being invaded. These professionals had volunteered their information. And that is the critical part that people need to understand. It's information on a professional network has to be presented in the right context. So I think there are two words which are very important in a professional network: context and relevance. If you're lacking these two, very often, more often than not, your marketing campaigns are going to fail. Your sales activities are going to fail. Whatever you're trying to do is probably going to rub the other person the wrong way. So you've got to get it in the right context, portray your information in the right context, and make it relevant to the audience. I mean, I may be saying the most basic things, but sometimes people forget that. They just retrofit. So for example, a lot of our marketing, a lot of brands who market on LinkedIn without any information just use the same banners that they would use on any other online portal and put them on LinkedIn. Very often we come in and we advise these firms and say that's not the best way to do it. It's either going to be a blind spot, and that's probably the best case scenario for you. Worse, you may actually irritate some of these professionals who do not come onto a professional network to be pandered to or sold to. Many of you, I'm sure, have had experiences like that on LinkedIn or on other platforms. And one of the biggest activities we do as part of community building is educating the base. We believe that we have three customers. We got the end consumer, we have advertisers, so advertisers / marketers, and we have recruiters. And we're educating all these three on how to use LinkedIn correctly such that they do not irritate each other. Now this is an interesting graph. This is why I wanted to show this. I apologize for the size, you won't really be able to tell much, but maybe I'll walk over and give you a little bit of an explanation. It is my own professional network. At the center is me. This actually shows my entire, I have about 1,000 connections on LinkedIn. And it shows my career graphically. Okay, this is what is called a gravity-based algorithm. Without getting too nerdy on you, it essentially means that people who have common interests gravitate to each other, and if they have multiple interests, they tend to get pulled away and end up being bridges between two pools of common interest bodies. So if you look at this, I won't go into all the details, but if you look at it, this big blue pool in the center is the Indian internet and tech industry. As you can see, it's extremely large. I have a lot of contacts in that space. This green one over here are my LinkedIn colleagues. Now, an interesting thing, many people think that as you go through your profession, through your career rather, you build your network, you build communities in a linear fashion. That's far from the truth. We find that some of our most engaged users are the senior professionals, because they know how to leverage the network. A good way to show this company down here is a company I spent 6 years working for. I started my career down there, and you can see the size of the network. I've been at LinkedIn for 1 year. Okay, as I have matured and gone further in my career, I've understood how to leverage my network better. And this would actually be reflective of most people's networks if you had a graphical rendition. How does this benefit you as marketers? Recently, I had to evaluate LinkedIn's mobile strategy for India. Like most of you, when you're thinking about that, I try to look for people who are subject matter experts. I looked inside my network. I found Vishal Maheshwari, who worked with me when I was at Yahoo. And I found this other gentleman, Mahesh, who's in the mobile industry as well. And these are ways in which I'm able to leverage my network to get information. Now, what this network doesn't show is that in most professional networks, you can see a third degree out. Why do we show you that information? Think about how you actually do business offline. How do you leverage a community? It's about your colleagues, and their colleagues. And one of these people are going to open that door for you as a marketer to get to the right decision maker. And so it's about knowing how to leverage your network and maybe finding a few familiar faces as well. Yeah, just here and there, right in the middle. So actually what that says is, because you're somewhat close to the center, you are actually very much at the core of the Indian IT and internet industry, the tech and internet industry as a whole. Now, the other interesting thing is, it's not just brands that have understood this. Media houses have begun to approach us to say, can we leverage the intelligence of the community? So this is something I go to marketers all the time and say, if a media house has figured this out, why aren't you using us for the same reason? Network 18, CNBC TV 18, basically, I was talking to Harsha Subramaniam, who's an editor on India Business Hour, their daily show, their nightly show rather, and he wanted to have the ability to get the pulse of the Indian professionals. And he felt there's no better way to do it than on LinkedIn. Now the point is not about LinkedIn, but it's about knowing how to leverage the community to get insights. So what we do with them is that we actually traffic polls on LinkedIn to get a sense of what Indian professionals feel about a given topic. We get the information, share it with the editorial team, and they discuss the results live on air. So these are insights coming from the community, driving further editorial insight, which leads to further information sharing on air, which many of our LinkedIn users are actually viewing. So the point being that it becomes this virtuous cycle of iterations on insight. And it only comes from participation. So only if you participated in this poll, had a view on something, will something happen. So the short answer of how do you get the most out of any professional network, LinkedIn or otherwise, you got to participate. It's not just about adding connections. It's about, if you've got a question in your professional world, why don't you put that question on LinkedIn Answers or on any other platform that you choose? If you have a question to a community, why don't you participate in a group of some form where you have intelligent people who you can learn from? It's about contributing to the network, and then you see the fruits flowing to you as well. Now finally, the final point I'll make, because Jesse told me not to belabor the point, a community of any kind actually, and this is stating the obvious, gains utility with scale. My network, it gets large. I have about, like I said, I have about 1,000 people in my network, but I have almost 1 million people in my overall third degree network. So the point being that once you're able to hit a certain scale, whatever the platform may be, that is when utility comes through to the community. So it's about yourself participating, it's about finding other people who you think could be useful, getting them to participate in whatever community you believe is useful to you. And that is when that community's utility will increase for everyone. So I didn't want to go any further on this. I just wanted to give you a sense of how we view communities, how some certain brands are leveraging the insights that you can get from community.